Welcome y'all to another Saturday State of Mind. We get asked all the time, is a will enough for my retirement plan? When you should have a will versus possibly be thinking about having a trust, and just exploring a little bit more at greater length what retirees get wrong about the differences between the two. So I'm your host, Mike Panico. Here's Liz. Thanks for joining us here again today.
Thanks so much for having me, Mike. It's always nice to be here.
So I've heard so many different times that a will, it's literally my will. It's what I would like to see done after I'm gone. Why does that sometimes fall short for the average person planning for the thereafter?
Well, this is really one of the first big misconceptions about wills, is that it may avoid the probate process, which in fact is not what a will does at all. Really, a will you can think of as a roadmap to what you'd like to happen in probate, but it's not necessarily legally binding first. Probate might go very differently to what's written in the will, and it doesn't avoid the probate process at all. If you die with just a will, your assets are highly likely to go through probate, meaning things like your real estate, car, all of that. So you're not avoiding probate. You're just giving direction to the probate judge overseeing your case of where you'd like all your stuff to go when it's finally done.
Is it important to avoid probate?
In my opinion, it is. But I think if you poll people, it's really, you get into the groups of people who love court. I think that's the minority. And then the majority of people of who'd like to avoid court.
People who love court. I'd love to meet those people.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of those clients in my career who have very clearly said to me, I want my stuff to go through probate. That's not my personal preference for my own things, but that is a very valid choice to make.
I think those people have some vendettas to settle.
Maybe. They're interesting backstories, that's for sure. But I think probate's a really important process to avoid if that's important to you, because it's very costly for the loved ones you're leaving behind to go through. It's financially very expensive. A lot of people hire lawyers to do that. You don't need an attorney to help you through probate, but most people, because of the intricacies of the process, they do end up hiring lawyers. And we all know lawyers are expensive. But money aside, probate is long. On average, it takes somewhere between 12 to 48 months to process. And that is a long period of time for people to be emotionally wrapped up in this event. So avoiding probate is really key to helping the people who come next heal faster.
So if I want to avoid probate and a will isn't going to help me do it, I think this is where lawyers start talking a little bit about trusts. Can you introduce trusts as a vehicle and why they specifically help for this purpose?
Absolutely. So trusts are living, breathing entities created through contracts that we call trust agreements. And they're pretty thick. It depends on what kind of trust you've got, but usually trusts are somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 50 pages long. But what a trust does is it outlines absolutely everything of what should happen next in terms of administration of an estate, who gets what, and who's in charge, to just name a couple of the key points. We create trusts because, like I mentioned, they're living, breathing entities. When you take your own personal assets and put them into the name of the trust, now the trust is the legal owner. That entity shall outlive you, asterisk, unless you unwind it. But assuming you keep it going, at the time you pass away, the trust continues to live on, continues to hold the assets, and thereby avoids probate. What I explain to my clients is probate is only for the realm of the dead, decedent estate assets. If we have all of your assets in trust, then there's nothing for the probate court to exercise jurisdiction over.
Are there any common misconceptions or myths that people tend to believe about either wills or trusts?
Yes. First, that trusts immediately give you some kind of protection. Liability protection, creditor protection. That is true for some kinds of trusts, but there is always a price to pay for anything you gain. So that's where having a meeting with an estate planning attorney who can really get into the intricacies of explaining the mechanics of different kinds of trusts and what you're getting is really important. But the biggest misconception of them all, again, is wills are going to help you make the probate process easier. That's not necessarily true.
Can you give the people here then a decision framework? How should I decide whether I need a will or a trust?
If you want your administration to be done privately, expeditiously, and you know to about a 99% degree that where you have said you want your assets going after death is where they're actually going to go, a trust is probably the best fit. If you prefer government intervention, having people go through court process, then just a simple will is probably the direction you would want to choose.
Okay, that's right to the point.
Yeah.
Thank you, Liz, as always, for being a straight shooter. I know that we learned a lot today. Check us out next time on Saturday State of Mind, where we're going to talk about the biggest estate planning myths and how to avoid them. We'll see you next time.